Serious, we hear a lot of Westerners talk about culture shock, but not the other way. People from non-Western countries, what culture shock have you experienced when visiting Western countries? During my short trip to Italy, stores and restaurants closes around 7 p.m. or early evening. In Korea, almost everything is 24 hours. I could even get a bus home around 3 in the morning. Don't you ever visit Denmark? Then, 5 p.m. most shops start closing down, everyone calling it a day. Toilet stalls in North America having short doors and huge gaps in between the door and the panel beside it. The gap is so big that I could pee and watch the people outside. Literally all of America wants to know why these are a thing just as much. Every serving is so dang big. If you go to McDonald's in China you will realize that the large Coke is as big as the small Coke in US. First time I took my kids to Europe we went to McDonald's. They immediately asked why they got a small instead of the medium they ordered. I had to explain to them that in Europe, a medium is the US small and a large is the US medium. Also, the lack of grease was perfectly normal too. I moved from Zimbabwe to England and very quickly concluded that English people did not speak English. Between the colloquialisms and the accents, especially northerners, it was a huge culture shock. I also didn't get what they meant when they said you speak posh till I had lived there a bit longer and realized they meant I speak the Queen's English and not Cockney etc. I just spoke English the way I was taught it. Water is water and not water in it. I then moved from England to Australia, and prior to my move, everyone was telling me that Australia is a nation of sports lovers. So naturally I started exercising because I didn't want to feel out of place when faced with all these Baywatch bodies. I arrived in Aus and quickly learned that a lot of Aussies love to watch sport, not partake in it. I was also expecting some level of racism, but fortunately most people have been really welcoming and helpful. The buttholes I've encountered are buttholes to everyone, and it has nothing to do with skin color. As the inventors of English we quickly became bored of it and decided that 50 different local dialects should be created to better recognize that meanhead from the town over and judge him for his strange foreign ways. I moved from Asia to the UK. The first thing I noticed is how much walking is done in a Western country. The whole culture of walking was really alien since where I'm from you'd be dead from the heat exhaustion. The cold was a big plus. Also you guys have like the most chill drivers around. Asian angry driver stereotypes are real. And in the US, we don't really walk anywhere, outside of the big cities, of course. I went to the England for an exchange program thing and we walked to school every day, which blew my mind. Our smaller cities in the US aren't designed for walking at all. May seem a bit weird, but when I first came to Australia from Sri Lanka, I was pretty surprised by the number of couples who would make out in public. Just straight up PDA. Back home, it's pretty uncommon, shocking even, for that kinda stuff to be done in public, but in Australia, no one even cares. I was like WTF, I'm used to it now though mayo. To be fair, existing civilizations who see white people for the first time have historically had a bad time shortly afterwards. I'm from the Philippines and I moved into the USA when I was 10. First were the African American people, then the beautiful skylines of LA and NY, then the food. The different types of food doesn't really compare to back home though. I'm now 22 and wish I could travel to see everything more. Paris syndrome. It's weird as balls. It's basically Japanese people watching movies or reading books set in or about Paris, and they fall in love with Paris. So they book a holiday there. They get there and discover that Paris is filthy and has rubbish all over the streets. They go into extreme shock because Paris isn't what they expected it to be. In fact, it's so bad that the Japanese embassy in Paris has a special 24-hour helpline for their tourists. Tipping. Like the whole idea that you pay for the food, and then you still have to directly pay the server. It just makes no sense to me. Where I come from, Singapore, the final bill would include a service charge so you don't have to spend time worrying about whether you're tipping too much, too little. So just having a service charge instead of tipping just streamlines the whole process. You'll love Australia even more then. The prices listed on the menu are exactly the prices you'll have to pay. None of that extra 7% and maybe extra 10% service charge balls. In the US, the very quick efficiency with everything, and the glamorized workaholic. Also, People don't talk to their families very nicely. The very quick efficiency with everything, and the glamorized workaholic. C. The Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism. Max Weber. I live in India, and I visited USA for the first time like 15 years back. I was 10 then and I had those stereotypical Indian parents, and so I has grown up in cultural surrounding where talking with girls, or girls wearing clothes that exposed too much was seen as something wrong. It literally blew my freaking mind when I saw people holding hands in USA or kissing in public. I thought that don't your parents scold you for that or tell you that's wrong? Growing up I realized that was pretty normal, and now the situation in India is also comparatively better. Moved here from South Korea. It has been many years now, but I still can't get over how big and mostly empty US is. You can drive for days and not get to the other side. We went on a road trip to Montana this summer, and we drove 4 hours without seeing a sizable town. Also, how much meat people eat here. Americans seem to have a big serving of meat with every meal, even breakfast. Yes, OMG, the meat part was such a huge shock to me too. I was shocked when I found out people ate meat for breakfast because it's mostly for dinners around where I'm from. I am originally from Slovak Republic and I have visited the US in 2009. We were in New York, among other places, and for me the biggest culture shock was when some lady started conversation with me in a hotel elevator. I had a Simpsons t-shirt and she complimented my shirt and started making small talk. Or some cashier at some touristy shop asked me where I'm from and whether I've seen some famous spot that was near the shop. I mean, I have traveled a bunch since then in Germany, Italy, Switzerland, but I do not recall anything like that here in Europe. Another culture shock for me was how some of the food was way too sweet. I mean, even the branded stuff like Fanta or Coke tasted differently to me. Coca-Cola has different recipes for different parts of the world. I agree that it tastes different outside of the USA. I've had it in Europe and Scandinavia and it's less sweet than it is here in the States. Since Fanta is a Coca-Cola product, it makes sense that they would adjust the recipe in other parts of the world too. Strangers greeting you in the streets. We're not that friendly in Asia, lol. Come to Scandinavia. We listen by the door before stepping into the stairwell to avoid running into any neighbors. I come from Vietnam to Finland to study. A few things that I have not experienced before. The respect for personal space. Most of the time on the buses, trams, metros, everyone's silent and looking out the window to avoid as much personal interaction as possible. Cars stop to wait for me to cross the road. In Vienna I am supposed to watch out and let cars, buses, motorbikes pass. This is also the first time I have to use English extensively in my life, and only now do I realize how much nuances and implications can be lost between good English speakers. I expected nice buildings, but it seems it's more important that buildings are functional and not necessarily beautiful. Or maybe I have not been to more modern areas in Espoo. When visiting France I loved that there was a bakery on every corner, and stopping by for a fresh baked croissant or pastry was simple and affordable. Also the little pop-up florist shops on every street. I liked that everyone stopped once a week to buy flowers just because. Again, the prices were very affordable. Here stateside, even a simple bouquet is gonna run you $10, and doing that every week really adds up. Their food service industry also amazed me. No fake niceness from the waiters. They are paid hourly, so they don't rely on tips. They don't rush you off from the table. They only bring the check when you ask. France is the best place in the world to get a rude waiter, and I mean that totally seriously. I love rude waiters. Give me a rude waiter who knows what they're doing over some prissy suck up any day. Throwaway account because I want to keep my identity secret. Moved from Saudi Arabia to go to college in the States, UCLA, and was shocked to see feminists going around defending Islam. I'm atheist but keep it hidden to protect myself. I would like to see how quickly their minds and opinions would change if they were forced to live in my home country for a few days. My friend from Nepal said he was shocked. Americans were so huge. He literally couldn't believe how fat everyone was and how much meat they consumed. From the Philippines and studied in the UK, I was shocked by Brits' love for the sun and park culture. Sunny lunch break, take off coat and sunbathe at the nearest park. Where I'm from, we never really liked going out in the sun as much because we have scorching heat most of the year. And we don't have parks because, pollution, discipline, and yes, the sun burns. Also, in the West, whenever I'm at a fast food or a restaurant where you line up, I feel rushed. Can I not change my mind? I know I should have already chosen my food, but it's not my fault you're late for work. I arrived here earlier, and I'm contemplating about a life choice here. Let me spend my hard-earned 3 minutes of wanting to be adventurous for the day. Relax. If you don't know what you want to order, don't line up. Line up only once you've decided. I'm a Westerner, and I've lived years abroad. Going back home, to Canada, is always a culture shock. Some of the things that are really weird to me. For reference, I currently live in South Korea. 1. People get really annoyed when you get too close in a public space. 2. The Canadian ability to self-organize and accuse is a testament to our British heritage, and takes some serious relearning coming from Asia. 3. Restaurants are expensive. Booze in restaurants is a luxury. Holy crap. Tipping and taxes are a pain in the butt. 4. People in general really don't care about freshness. Walking down the produce aisle of a chain supermarket is a horror show. 5. Canadians will tell you they value honesty over saving face the Asian way, but they're the biggest bunch of pussies when it comes to speaking their minds. Canadian passive aggressiveness is exactly like Asian indirectness, except less subtle and with a shittier attitude. 6. Internet and cell phones are such an insane, crazy ripoff. 7. People in Canada dress like crap, but they're so dang hot anyway. The Canadian ability to self-organize and accuse is a testament to our British heritage. Yay, that part you definitely didn't get from our French heritage. Not my experience, but I met a girl from Senegal who moved here and she said everyone in Canada is very fast. We don't stroll, we sprint. We're very tightly wound and always rushing from one place to another. I never noticed until she told me I walked far too fast for her. Line in Japan. Lots of Japanese people are surprised because America has ridiculously large portion sizes at restaurants. In Europe the streets are surprisingly dirty. People butt in line. People make small talk with the cashier at the grocery store. People have more kids than what they can pay for college for. Ambulance rides cost money. Green tea is served sweet. I'm not sure if I'm exactly the person you want to hear from, as I was born in the US and I'm American, but I grew up in Latin America, lived there longer than in the US. Before the age of 18, coming back to the US for college was quite the culture shock. There were a few things that really threw me off. The one that I still remember most vividly and I'm often reminded about today, so many years later, is how processed and unhealthy food is in the US. I mean, yeah, the Latin American countries I lived in did have processed foods. The basics: jam, cereal, canned soup, broth cubes, etc. Basically, convenience things you use while cooking. But when I came back here I realized you can eat entire meals, all day, every day, that are boxed and wrapped in plastic. Cooking is no longer required. For example, 1. Instant pasta and sauce meals just add water that you can find in the pasta aisle. It's not even refrigerated. 2. Pad thai noodles that are packaged in a box and constitute a meal after you add boiling water. 3. Vegetable side dishes that already come in a sauce, frozen. 4. Endless varieties of frozen dinners, breakfasts. 5. Frozen peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, with the crusts cut off. How hard is it to make PB&Js? The amount of floor space dedicated to these foods in the grocery store is huge, especially compared to fresh produce. To a certain extent, I guess, that makes sense. Some tropical countries have amazing produce, especially fruit, but the amount of fresh food you can get in US grocery stores is surprisingly small when compared to processed foods. I still can't decide what's worse, how unhealthy this processed food is or how wasteful the packaging is. It just seems so weird to me, even now. Most of my relatives visiting me, I am Chinese, comments on how fat some Americans are. In China, 200 pounds are starting to be considered fat, and 250 pounds people are absolutely fat. Here there are a lot of people exceeding 300 pounds. And then the concept of being poor in the US. Some homeless people still have cars, sleeping bags, tents, and even smartphones. A lot of those are still considered luxury items in China. A real culture shock for me was how nice people are. Not just the fake smile, but most people don't really care where you are from and the color of your skin. The people in the US don't really have a sense of us versus them. Most of the Chinese would have because how homogeneous we are. Most of Americans would welcome you to live here as long as I am a productive member of this society and willing to assimilate. In China, because the color of your skin, either white or black, and the color of your eyes, you will perpetually stand out as a foreigner. To be fair, 200 pounds on an average Chinese build is definitely way fatter than an average American man at 250. But damn it, 250 is super freaking fat on 95% plus of people still. I was served a beef burger when I asked for a cheeseburger. In my country, a cheeseburger is a veg burger with a slice of cheese in it. You have been visited by the safety doggo. Subscribe and you will be safe from all danger for the next 24 hours. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.